Okay, everybody, welcome to tonight's amazing shir. We are here tonight, the night before Rosh Hashanah. Tonight is shir number 72 from the Let's Get Real program with Coach Menachem Berenfeld. Thank you for coming. I know most people are probably watching this while they're making the gefilte fish and getting ready with all the preparations, but we really thank everybody coming. We know it's a hard night, and we really want to get the chizuk before going into Rosh Hashanah tomorrow. And we're zeicha to have Rabbi Benzion Twerski here with us. So let's get started. Again, I want to start off with thanking everybody who comes on every week and posting it on their statuses, emailing their friends, telling people that every Sunday night we have a shir here. The amazing speakers, rabbanim, therapists. So please continue spreading the word and giving people the chizuk to come on and helping so many people. For those that are watching the video on YouTube, please click on the subscribe button. Also click on the like button for Coach Menachem. And every Monday when the video gets uploaded, you can see the new videos every week. I want to first start off with our advertising sponsors, the Lakewood Scoop, who always promotes us here in Lakewood, our home base. Special thank you to Rabbi and Yanid from Chazak. Thank you for them. They always help us getting speakers. And a special thank you to Chayla Kaufman and Shmuel Sommer from the JCN, the Jewish Content Network, for always promoting us across all the digital Jewish platforms. Again, for anybody who's here for the first time, every Sunday night, we do the shir at this time at 10 o'clock. And we're going to have a Menachem shir next Sunday, September 12th. It's going to be the Sunday before Yom Kippur, before we go on our extended vacation till after Sukkot. And you know who's speaking next Sunday? We don't know either yet. So we'll let you know as soon as we confirm who's speaking. But it's going to be an amazing program, and as usual, it's going to be deep and meaningful. And we're looking forward for everybody to come again. And let's start off with opening with our host, Coach Menachem. Open it up.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to another show. Tonight it is literally less than 24 hours before Rosh Hashanah. We have this chus to have with us Rabbi Benzion Twerski. Last time when he came on, the feedback was overwhelming, the positive, overwhelming feedback with understanding Yiddishkeit and mitzvahs, the chalal. And I think before Rosh Hashanah, a lot of people get into that mode of trying to figure things out, trying to understand, trying to connect. And it's a big schos to have him here tonight. I think many people would have to, in a way, start fresh, as if they've never felt or seen Rosh Hashanah. Because what happens is we come in with a preconceived notion, all of the ideas that we have all the years, and then some people feel a little bit lost. There are many people who don't really have much questions. Basically, whatever they did the past few years, they will do this year also. And I believe those people are probably not here tonight. But a lot of people, when you tell them today is the day, Rosh Hashanah, and in a way, it's back and forth. In a way, you are scared. What are we supposed to do? And then, you should be thankful for the year that you had until now, which I think it's a time that we need to make Shechiyanu, Vikimanu, Vigiyanu, Lazmanazeh. We're all here, sitting here, and hopefully healthy. And yes, there was a lot of things going on the past year, but there were a lot of negativity, but there were positives also. And now when we're going into the new year, New Rosh Hashanah, how? What should we do different? Am I doing the right thing? And then people start feeling guilty. The thoughts come up, and they can get a little bit lost. The Yetzer Hara could have a big koyach and put people in anxiety, and basically they can't do much anyways because they are so anxious. But there's one thing that I believe everybody agrees, that what our avodah is to find one area where whatever it is, everybody knows where they should try to get a little bit better and take something very, very small. That's what they all say. Because what we want is we want to become a tzaddik today and change everything today and see the results now. And that's why many people after a while give up, because it's not happening now. It's not changing everything today. You have to do things slowly and a little bit at a time so that it sticks. And it's just like in chinuch, they say, it's your child, let him grow up. It has to grow, and just like a plant, you're planting a tree. There's no way you can plant that seed and say, I want to see the tree now. It doesn't work. So the same thing, everybody is maskim, and that's really the question, where and how. So in Mitzvah Hashem, hopefully tonight we'll be able to get out a little bit of more of an idea to help, no matter what level you are, if you're a Bachar in Yeshiva, a young girl, or Shidduchim, right after marriage, or maybe 50 years old, 60, everybody's looking, everybody wants, everybody in their area to find that small thing where they can connect and feel that they're growing, and they should be able to tell themselves that they're growing, because if in your mind you don't see, you don't feel, then it doesn't last too long. So thank you, Rabbi Twerski, for being with us tonight. And in Mitzvah Hashem, hopefully we'll have the inspiration, everybody where they need it to grow and to come into the Rosh Hashanah with a new perspective in Mitzvah Hashem.
Menachem, such a beautiful opening. Okay, let's get into tonight's shir. Tonight's shir, I just want to mention that Menachem started writing the first series of the book. Rabbi Twerski, you're in the first book. Don't worry, we're going to send you the manuscript first. But started writing the first book. It's the first 40 shiurim of Coach Menachem. And a lot of people donated chapters. Really appreciate that. We're trying to put it together. Hopefully it'll be put together about 6 months. Anybody else who wants to donate a chapter or any part of it, it's every shir. It's a small synopsis, the opening and some of the questions. And we're doing the first 40. Tonight's shir number 72. So we're already up to book 2. So it should be amazing. Please reach out to coachmenachem@gmail.com for any details, the information. Now let's get into tonight's shir. Tonight's shir, it's going to be again something special. It's Erev Rosh Hashanah. We're zeichet to have Rabbi Benzion Twerski here. As we say, if somebody comes back a second time, right? It's usually a good sign. It's Rabbi Twerski. Obviously, we love you. We want you to come back. Thank you for coming again. Before we're going to start, we're going to do tonight's shir Zeich Nishmas. The Bacher. I saw on somebody's status a video of him and a family member, as friends of mine, and I just saw the video. It brought me to tears. Just thinking about all the things that happened this year. So I wanted to dedicate this year the schus of Shmuel, the Bacher Shmuel ben Mordechai Menachem Silverberg, who was obviously tragically killed in yeshiva a little mamash over 2 weeks ago, not such a long time ago. And he was an amazing boy. And the story is like still, shocking Gans Klal Yisrael. And I think now Erev Rosh Hashanah with such a big share, there's met hundreds of people here, and the thousands of people that are going to hear it and be mechuzik from it. Let's let it be il nishmas during the shloshim for him. We have the mishpacha on here tonight. So first we're going to ask an aunt of his to speak for literally a minute or two, and then we're going to play a video, and then we'll go back to Rabbi Twerski. So can the aunt, are you on?
Yes, I am right here.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. The video that everyone is about to see gives you a very small glimpse into my nephew, Shmelly Silverberg, and the tremendous carbon that we had to give this year, Erev Rosh Hashanah. The video that you're about to see takes place on Purim in Denver Yeshiva. A few years ago, Shmelly was inspired by his uncle Eli Grossman, who told him that Purim can be a time of great aliyah, and it doesn't only have to be being high on wine, it could be high on Torah. And Shmelly was always someone who jumped on board whenever he heard of something nice to do, to grow and to become a better person. And he loved the idea and he went with it. And every year since then, he would make on Purim, when everyone around him was high, he would get up and he would make a siyum in yeshiva on the Sechtas Megillah. The most amazing part is when he finished, he would always make sure his mother and father were on the phone, and he would thank them. Thank you, Mommy. Thank you for always davening for me, because it's because of you that I'm able to be what I am today. Right now, Denver Yeshiva is running a charity, Zeich Nishmas Shmelly, to continue being mechazik the family and to be mechazik the yeshiva. Charity.com/Shmelly, SHMULI. And they're using the money to acquire a new Aron Kodesh, a new set of Nevi'im, Al-Klaf, with a full Eitzer Hasfarim in the Denver Yeshiva. Everyone should help out. It'll be majorly mechuzik the Eilam in Denver, who's so shattered, and the family. And Mirza Shem's Neshama should have a great aliyah from this. Thank you so much.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much. We're going to send the link out after the shir on the Menachem's email for anybody who wants to look at that. And now we're going to play the video, and then Rabbi Twerski will go to you. Let's play the video. Wow. Okay. Okay, Rabbi Twerski, I'm going to read your bio, and then the floor is yours. Rabbi Benzion Twerski represents the third generation of rabbinic leadership at Congregation Beth Yehuda. He strives to take classic Hasidus texts and teach them in a manner that makes them relevant to all who strive to connect with his teaching. Rabbi Twerski's sensitivity and probing intellect has allowed him to develop close relationships with his congregation, including my wife and her family, and is heavily sought out speaker throughout the country. Rabbi Twerski has over 600 plus shiurim on Torah anytime. And Rabbi Benzion Twerski, a great person of being masking to come on the night before Rosh Hashanah. I'm sure you have a lot to do in your community. And I just want to say thank you. And the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for having us. I think that one of the challenges that we face generally in the Yom Tov season is that we're accustomed to doing all the things that we're supposed to do, saying all the things that we're supposed to say. But as anybody who's ever taken a trip knows, that as beautiful as the scenery and the sights may be along the way, if you don't have a destination, you're never going to get there. For those of us who use GPS these days to get around, once upon a time, there used to be something called the Trip Tech. I doubt they even make them anymore. AAA used to prepare it for you, and you'd have page after page of how it is that you're supposed to get there and what you could see along the way. And I think that one of the things that happens to us, certainly during this Yom Tov season, is that albeit that we do everything, but we don't necessarily have a destination. There's not a point that we're trying to reach ultimately in the entire season. So that begs the question, okay, if that's the case, what is the destination? We have, obviously, there's Yom Adin and Yom HaMelachas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then there's a day of Slich and Kapara, and then we go from there into Sukkot and the Daled Minim and Hoshana Rabbah and Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. But where are we going? What's the ultimate destination? They tell a Maisa that I think really sheds light on that question, and hopefully will really address many of the questions that are going to come in tonight. The Mittel Rebbe, second Lubavitcher Rebbe, our ancestor of ours, Dov Ber, had a chassid, was considered by many to be an incredibly inspiring figure, a genius in Torah, a great Makobel. His name was Reb Hillel of Parich, the set of Svarim that he authored. It was a difficult chassidus. Reb Hillel once, Erev Yom Kippur, was coming into the Bismedish Dam Shachris, and there was a woman sitting outside collecting. And she was stopping all the people as they were going into Shul. And she said to Reb Hillel that she rents a property for her family. She hasn't been able to pay the rent. And the result of that was that it's now been several months, and she was warned that unless she comes up with the money within the next week, that she's going to be evicted from her home. And she began to weep bitterly. Clearly, she saw that Reb Hillel was an exalted figure and that he might be able to help her. So he said to her, wait out here. I'm going to go and collect for you in the Bismedish. And rather than going to daven, he began going around and collecting. And after making all of the rounds in the Bismedish, he didn't even have a tenth. She needed what it was several hundred rubles. And what he gathered were kopikis. It was like pennies and dimes and nickels and quarters. People tried being generous due to Reb Hillel's stature, but it was an Urim Avelt. It was a poor world. And when he came out with the amount of money that he had collected, she realized that she was going to be evicted. And she began to weep once again. Reb Hillel said to look, it's Erev Yom Kippur. I'm going to do whatever I can do. And he began wandering in town until he came upon the tavern, the local shank. He went into the tavern, and it was known that there were a group of estranged Jews who would frequent this shank, this tavern. And Reb Hillel, with his flowing white beard and his imposing figure, enters the bar. And a hush falls over the entire crowd. Generally, it was obviously a place that was full of smoke and lots of drinking and the clanking of glasses. But when a figure like Reb Hillel walked in, so the silence enveloped the entire room. And the Jewish group that was in the corner called out to him with some mockery, saying to him, Rabbi, what brings you here on Erev Yom Kippur? So Reb Hillel understood that was his destination. He walks over to the table, takes a seat with these shikurim, and they said to him, how can we help you? And he tells them the story. He says, there's a woman, she's all alone with a group of children, a bunch of kids, and she's going to be evicted. And we need to help her. It's Erev Yom Kippur Yidden. So these Yidden look him up and down and they see that he's sincere. And one of them says to him, look, Rabbi, we'll make you a deal. One of them says to him, if you drink, it was you know what one of those beer glasses is, but there wasn't a beer. They put into 9 and 9 cigar, which was 99% alcohol. One of them said to him, if you drink a cup full of this vodka, I'll give you a quarter of the entire sum that you need. So Rabbi Hillel said it's a deal. And he takes this cup of spirits and closes his eyes, says a bracha, Erev Yom Kippur, and downs this huge amount of this powerful liquor. The other one, and the guy next door to him, didn't want to be shown up by his friends. He says to this guy, I'll match his deal. They bring another cup of this liquid, this impossibly strong alcohol, and Reb Hillel drinks a second cup. And the scene repeats itself until he had the entire sum that he needed, but obviously his head was swimming. He couldn't focus any longer. They couldn't believe that he was still standing upright, but Reb Hillel had a very strong mind. And Shikra hate, he runs to this almana, gives her the money, and by now the Olam was gathering a bismedish for Kol Nidre. And Reb Hillel is as shikr can be. He runs into the bismedish. Everybody's dressed in white, draped in their talesim, and the matziv is umgezeug. We all know what the feeling is of people walking into Kol Nidre. And Reb Hillel runs up to the Aron Kodesh. And the Tzemach Tzedek, this was after the Mittler Rebbe's passing, the Tzemach Tzedek was now Rebbe. And he runs up to front and everybody becomes quiet. The scene of Reb Hillel, you could see that his eyes were bloodshot. And he runs up, he opens the Aron Kodesh, turns around to the Olam, and he screams, Atorei Soladas, Ki Hashem hu Elikim Einoid Malvadoi, with the Simchas Torah Dikanig. And you could hear a pin drop in his medish, and he falls to the floor with a thud. The Tzemach Tzedek gets up and says, Rabbi Isai, all of the avodah that we do, beginning with slichus, the week before Rosh Hashanah and the Slichas of Erev Rosh Hashanah and the Avodah of Tkiyah Shofar and all the Sudas of Yontiv and all the Tefillas and Nisana Toikef and everything. And then we go through Aseres Yomei Tshuva with Tashlich and Kaporis and Kol Nidre and Ni'ilah and the Yontiv of Sukkot and the Dal Minim and the Nanuim and all of the Avodah of Chodesh Tishrei is all to bring us to the moment of Atarei Saladas, of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. That's what the entire goal of all of those things is, so that a Yid can proclaim on Simchas Torah with clarity, Ata Harei Saladas, you have shown us so that we can know Ki Hashem hu Elikim ein oid milvadei. That's the destination. For all of us, it takes all of those steps to help us arrive at that moment. Reb Hillel, through his avodah and through this ma'aseh tzedakah that he did, was able to attain that already on the night of Kol Nidre. The rest of us are going to have to go through the rest of the process. When I heard this story, to me, it clarified what the destination is. What is it that we're trying to accomplish with all of these steps? And now with that in mind, we can begin to approach having some understanding of how each one of these components that we're beginning in Mitzvah Shem tomorrow, we should have begun already with Slichas, but how all of those things fit in to our ultimate destination of where it is that we're heading through all of the mitzvahs and through all of the tefillas and all the avodah of these Yomim Magdoshim, these holy days that we're approaching, is all to bring us to the point of Atarei Saladas Ki Hashem Elikim. Now, I can offer some ideas, but I think what's going to be far more effective is going to be for everybody personally to now, in light of that, try to surmise and to figure out how each one of the components of what it is that we're doing fits into that map. And ultimately, that will lead us to that destination. I hand you back the floor, Oshi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Okay, let's do a little poll, Rabbi, and then we'll break, and then we'll jump into questions again. We're excited to have Rabbi Twerski here tonight with us, so please, I'm sure he's been asked harder questions, so feel free to ask anything you want to ask. Text me, Al Shaparnas over here, and we'll put you on. Obviously, live questions go first, and let's take a little poll from the Olam, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, 2 questions over here. It's anonymous, so you can answer whatever you want. Nobody knows who's saying what. First question is, what are you feeling towards on Rosh Hashanah tomorrow? Are you happy and ready to connect to Hashem? Are you scared and fearful? I haven't thought about it much. Those are the 3 options. Second question, how do you plan on making this Rosh Hashanah more meaningful? A, extra concentration on davening. B, taking upon myself a Kabbalah. C, thinking about all the events of the past year and, I have to move the screen here, and realizing Hashem is in total control. Or option D, more self-introspection. Okay, those are the 2 questions. Please answer them, and then we'll jump into questions. We got a bunch of questions emailed in. We'll get to that. And anybody who wants a question, please text me, A.B. Eisenbach. Feel free to ask. I know that, you live far away from Rabbi. So, if you want to speak to him, this is a good way to speak to him. Okay, 5, 4. Very interesting. Okay, let's share it with everybody. Okay, what are your feelings on Rosh Hashanah tomorrow? 58% of the people here feel tomorrow they're happy and they're ready to connect to Hashem. Rabbi Twerski, we're good to go, right?
Wow.
28% are scared and fearful, and 13% of people, they haven't thought about it much. Our oilam is a very aware oilam, so I knew that that's going to be the answer. Number 2, how do you plan on making this Rosh Hashanah more meaningful? 20% of people said extra concentration on davening. 10% said they're taking upon themselves a Kabbalah. The winning answer, 49%, thinking about all the events of the past year and realizing that Hashem is in total control. It's obviously something we have to talk about. And 21% of people feel they're going to put more self-introspection. Okay. So let's start with some questions. Anybody who has the screen, you can X out of it now. And we'll start with some of the questions that were sent in. And anybody that has anything, Rabbi Twerski, let's hop around. Less than 24 hours Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Twerski, what could I do this year that will be different, and the stuff that I'm going to take on. What can I do this year will be different, and the stuff I say I'm going to take on to make it actually stick.
So the conversation actually that we had here in the Kehillah, again, these are just ideas. Personal ideas will probably be much more effective. I would split it into two parts. And I think that one of these components really speaks to the heart of Rosh Hashanah Befrat. I'll tell you a story. The best way to answer any question is always with a good story. The Ber Maim Chaim actually quotes the story. He says that Rebbe Goin was once invited to a Kehillah to speak. And it took a journey for him to get to wherever he was going. And evidently he didn't travel with Gaboim. And when he came to the town, he checked into the local Holiday Inn. And the purveyor, the owner of the inn, looked at him, and evidently he was he didn't have an imposing way that he carried himself, and he thought that he was just another archaparcha, another traveler. So when Rebbe Goin asked him for a room, he took the key to the corner room and kind of threw it at this guy, like, you know, go take the average or one of the lesser rooms. The next day, they announced that Rebbe Goin was going to speak in shul at a certain time, and all the storekeepers closed their stores, the businesses closed, the yeshivas closed. Everybody came to hear Rebbe Goin, including the innkeeper. And when he saw Rebbe Goin ascend the steps to the bima, and he saw that this person who he treated so averagely was the great, renowned Rebbe Goin, he couldn't believe what he had done. And he ran up and fell at Rebbe Goin's feet and began to weep. Please be Menachem. Rebbe Goin said, for what? So he said, had I only known yesterday what I know today, I never would have treated you that way. Rebbe Goin began to weep. And he said, Rebbeinu Shalom, each of us say the same thing. If only we knew about you what we know today, I never would have treated you that way. I think that one of the challenges, and at the same time, as with all challenges, one of the opportunities that we have in Rosh Hashanah, and to be consistent with the theme of the davening, we're really trying to get to know who it is that we're serving, who it is that is making these demands of us, who it is that is the mitzvah, who is the one who's commanding us. I just saw that the Rambam, when he got up to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, says that his knees were knocking together and trembling. And the point was, he wrote this in his letters, in his chuvas. He said, I began thinking about who is the mitzvah, who is the one that's commanding us to do this mitzvah, and who is the one that's carrying out the mitzvah. If we want something to be different, there's only going to be two ways to change it, maybe three ways. The first one is, who is it that we're serving? If we're going into Yomim Noraim and Yontif with the same God that we did last year, it's unlikely that anything's going to change. If we can really utilize the tefillas of Rosh Hashanah and the contemplation that the people answered in your poll, and really ponder and spend the time realizing, and if I may be so bold, maybe that's what one of the messages that the Rebbeinu Shalom was sharing with us over this past year. He's really showing off. I don't know if you've seen any pictures of this tornado that hit New Jersey this past week. Look at the forest fires in California. Look at the flooding that's taken place over the year. Just I'm talking about, forget about the tragedies. I'm just talking about the sheer power of the Borei Olam. And that's just in a physical sense. And then to realize the control that he has over every single moment. My sister, Rebbetzin Singer in Borough Park, shared with me before, just the hashgacha, the power of hashgacha. She has a son, so Yankel. He was davening Hashem Shabbos. He designates his left pocket as where he keeps his money that he gives to tzedakah. So a few weeks ago, he reached into his pocket when the shamas in the famous shamas there in Shem Shabbos came around collecting with his can, and so Yaakov reached into his pocket. He had nothing there but one of these Clicks candy bars that he had for one of his kids. So he didn't have any money, so he took the Clicks candy bar and put it into this bowl instead of Bimkim money. Anyway, this guy was very eager. He took the candy bar and put it in his pocket. He came back last week. So the shaman said to him, he says, "You're not going to believe what happened." He says, "Last night, the middle of Ma'ariv, a guy chalished. It was a diabetic. And everybody began screaming, 'Does anybody have any sugar?' He says, 'I was prepared and ready. I had the candy bar that you gave me the other week.' He says, 'You saved somebody's life by giving that candy bar to tzedakah.'" The orchestrator, and all of us have stories like this, by the way. Somebody just asked me last week, "How come you have all these stories?" I said, "I can guarantee you these stories happen to everybody. It's just a question of, are we attentive? Are we paying attention?" So one way to make this year different is by not having the same Rebbeinu Shalom that we had last year. I don't Chalila mean in dramatic terms. Obviously, Mitzvah Shem, we have the same Rebbeinu Shalom that we've been serving and that our ancestors before us have been serving. But it can't be the same Bashefer. We have to be able to say, like Reb Sadi Goyen said, if only I knew yesterday what I know today, I wouldn't have served you the same way. But the Samizdav Zayin Andish, it can't be the same Rebbeinu Shalom. This year, it's the Rebbeinu Shalom that showed off his incredible power over the universe and over Klal Yisrael Befrat, both L'Toiv and L'Mutav. And we got to accept the fact that he's trying to get our attention. That's one thing. But I think that the second way is we have to be able to appreciate the gift. Anybody who tries keeping up with the numbers of Sifrei Kodesh, the books printed by ArtScroll and Feldheim and all the other publishers that allow us to gain deeper insight. I've been talking about real high quality. That's in addition to all the Svarim in Lashon Kodesh that it's impossible to keep up with. Add to that programs like Coach Menachem and so many of the other programs that are available to Klal Yisrael Torah Anytime and what was the other one you told me about, Doshi, today? Shas Illuminated. There's a wealth of things that can change our approach to any given mitzvah, to any given tefillah, to any paragraph in Shemoneh Esrei, to any paragraph in Pesukei de Zimra. There's a wealth of stuff available to us if only we want to deepen our relationship, not just HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but deepen our relationship to any given mitzvah. So why should Tkiyah Shofar this year be the same as it was last year? We should be armed with it. Somebody, Rabbi Zone from New York was here, from Baltimore, and he shared with me the Divrei Torah that Rav Olshin is, right? It's Rav Olshin, one of the Rosh Yeshivas of Lakewood, printed these massive svarim on each one of the Yom Tovim, and now they're translated weekly into English. You get them by email. They're rich in insight, and he quotes from everybody in the world. There's such a wealth available to us. It requires discipline that we have to take the time out to deepen our relationship, not just to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but to each mitzvah individually, that it should speak differently to us. And there's infinite insights because the Rebbeinu Shalom is infinite. And therefore it has to be that his mitzvahs are infinite as well. So if we want something to be different this year, the only way to make it different is going to be by approaching it differently. We have to change our relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we have to change our relationship to the mitzvahs that we're performing.
Okay, Rabbi Twerski, let's take a few live questions. You're on.
Thank you very much for the weekly lectures. Very much appreciate them. The question is, when am I allowed to pray for individual people during Rosh Hashanah?
Okay. That's a great question. So let me introduce that by first destroying the question. There's a famous Zohar that's quoted by all the Sfarim that condemns people who are mispalel for individual or at least personal needs. The language of the Zohar there is that Klal Yisrael comes to Yom Noraim like a bunch of dogs screaming, have, give me. So why would Chazal, the Divrei Chaim asks, as many others do, so why did they establish tefillas that request personal requests? If they didn't want us asking for personal things, then it should have all been about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his Hamlacha. So the answer goes to really to the heart of what it is that we're looking for in the tefillah. Meaning as follows. Let's take the simple answer to the question you asked is in the additional paragraphs that are added. Zachrenu l'chaim, remember us for life, Melech Havetz b'chaim. At the conclusion of Shemoneh, you have a very detailed tefillah that we add to all of the amidos of the season. B'sefer Chaim Bracha, Parnasa Tova. We ask for all those things specifically in the bracha of Sim Shalom, which is add onto itself because it's really not a bracha of bakosha at all. But the critical words are going to be Leman Chalikim Chaim. We're not asking for ourselves, we're asking for your sake. Today, just again, watching what happens, I pulled into a gas station on my way back from Chicago. And mamash like in out in the boondocks and somewhere in between here in Chicago. And I'm filling up with gas, and I see a guy heading straight towards me. And he says to me, "Are you Jewish?" So I said, "Yes." So he said, "I got to tell you, I'm from Morocco. And I love the Jewish people." There were people who tried saying things about them. He says, "I know the Jewish people. They are wonderful people, and I'll prove it to you." He's speaking with a hexadent. And he says, of all of the people I interacted with, I never saw a homeless Jew, and I never saw a Jew panhandling on the street for food. You guys know how to take care of each other. And I knew b'shas ma'isa that this was a communication from above. It needs to be in Leman Chalikim Chaim. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives us the things that we need and the challenges that are required so that we will turn to him for the things we need. But each one of those statements and appeals concludes with the words, "For your sake, Rebbeinu Shalom." If Klal Yisrael will care for each other, and we'll see to it that we take care of each other's needs, and that the Rebbeinu Shalom will be mashpia upon us, a shefa, a bounty of good health and of wealth and of nachis and of long life, then Yetz Hashem, the Kiddushem Shemayim that could come out of that Rebbeinu Shalom is extraordinary. I just want to share with you an interesting thing. I came here tonight, on my way here, I stopped at a Pidyon Ben. Pidyon Ben was a fellow in his 60s who, through the work of one of our Kohen Galait, realized that the likelihood, he wasn't 100% certain, but the likelihood is that he never had a Pidyon Ben, and he was a firstborn son. So before we began the process of the Pidyon Ben, I said to him that Hashem refers to Klal Yisrael as B'nai B'chayir Yisrael. We are Hashem's firstborn. And there's some people who do a Pidyon Ben right away when the baby's born, 30 days, do it Be'ita. But then there are some redemptions that are taking a long time. And when somebody late in life realizes that they could not have a Pidyon Ben yet, then I think we have the opportunity to turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say to the Rebbeinu Shalom, there's some redemptions that take a long time, but we're here. We're performing the Pidyon Ben, and we're asking you, Rebbeinu Shalom, to finally perform your Pidyon Ben and to redeem us at this late stage as well, so that we can go and serve the Rebbeinu Shalom the way he requests and demands of us.
Beautiful.
Did I answer the question?
Yes, very well. Excellent. Okay, you ready for the next question?
Go for it.
Okay, you're on live.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we could.
Amazing. Thanks so much for taking my question. I went through a really sudden and painful divorce recently. I know that I myself have what to work on. Then my Rosh Hashanah is coming, starting fresh. I want to be emotionally healthy and comfortable with myself, close to Hashem. And I'm really looking to move on, but I'm seeing that I'm desperate to get there already. How do I actually slow down and accept the, during stage?
Wow. So let's begin with a much earlier step. And I think this will go to the heart of what Menachem opened up with earlier, which were the suffering of Klal Yisrael. Clearly, the pain that you've endured is personal and very clearly raw and real. But I think we'd all be foolish if we allowed these opportunities to pass without pondering, why does Hashem bring suffering and pain into the world? What's the purpose? So to get any understanding into that, obviously we need to look into, this isn't going to come as a shock to anybody, but pain and suffering is not a new phenomena, and certainly not to Klal Yisrael. The Ran, in his drushes, offers one explanation. Obviously, there are many explanations, but if we're going to approach Rosh Hashanah as, I don't know if there's ever been a time, certainly not in my life, where Unasana Toikif comes to full, if we'd be able to put up a screen and put up pictures of what took place this past year. When Asana Takeoff comes to vivid life. Mi ba'esh, mi ba'mayim, mi ba'chanika. I mean, just incredible live pictures. The Ran says, and I shared this with a young man this past Friday here in the community, with the Rebbe Shalom with the Refuah Shalema, but their daughter was taken into the hospital with what they suspected was some kind of severe neurological, something was going on. And they had no idea what it was. The fright was so intense. None of us should ever know the feeling. And I said to him, tell me something, if during that process, someone would have come over to you and offered you a wonderful, scrumptious, barbecued steak, would it have appealed to you? Now, obviously, I asked him this after the fact. I'm not insane. I didn't do this b'shas ma'aseh. So he said, of course not. How could I have eaten anything? Nonetheless, the Sefer Tehillim was there, and they certainly utilized the power of tefillah at a time like that. So, says the Ran, that there are times when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to get us to remove our heads. As the story goes with the Kotzker, he came upon a guy who was indulging in the sukkah, but was really, really into his food. And he screamed to the chassid, he said to him, you're eating chutz the sukkah. So he said, Rabbi, I'm in the sukkah. He said, no, you're not. You're in your bowl. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to get our attention. He's trying to help us get our heads out of our bowls. And they come in many forms, these bowls. It's not dafka in the appetites are for food. We have a whole array of physical appetites and other forms of distraction. And Hashem is trying to get our attention. So the Ran says that one of the purposes of human suffering is that suffering lessens the intensity of our bodily taivas. That's one mahalach. The Priya Aretz, Menachem Vitebsk, offers another mahalach that I found amazingly powerful. He writes that when a person is attempting to look and perceive something with clarity, that the way to see it in the sharpest focus is to create a filter that blocks everything else so that the person can peer with great focus and concentration upon that which he wants to see. So if you look at somebody who's doing this, they're putting a complete curtain, if you will, in front of their eyes. All there is a tiny spot to look through. Menachem Vitebsk says, and he, by the way, had the right to say this because the tsuras that he endured, that he and his community endured as they moved to Eretz Yisrael in the late 1700s. They went through, they lost a huge proportion of the people who went with them, died along the way, and the poverty and the starvation was intense. Menachem Vitebsk said that the purpose of that darkness was to block out everything else so that they could look with clarity at what was really important. So I think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving Klal Yisrael an opportunity now to take a step back, look at what we went through, look at what we're going through, and to really allow the eye, not the physical eye, but the perception of Klal Yisrael to look and say, Rabbi said, we need to take a step back. There's an old Yiddish song that the refrain is, was ist wichtig and was ist nicht. What's really important and what's not. And for us to recalibrate and get a good, intense look at what is really important and what it is that we need to, what we should be getting excited about and what's really not worth getting worked up about. Was ist wichtig and was ist nicht. And that's one of the things that Rahmana Litzlan, the Rebbe shouldn't test us, but the tsaras that we experience give us the opportunity to really get a grip on what's important and what's not.
Very powerful, Rabbi Twerski. Okay, there's so many live questions over here. We have all night, right? We go straight to Slichas. Okay, you're on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, hi. So I'm wondering if you can address the fire and brimstone fear that we were taught to have at this time of the year. Like, I understand that the school system instilled it in order to shake us into being serious about like the severity of this time of the year. But I know that personally, and for many people I know, this fear just manifests into overwhelming anxiety. It affects everyday responsibilities, and like it just manifests into something almost resentful. And I know for a lot of people, especially myself, like I have to push myself to daven in a positive way because we're just so overwhelmed with this fear. Is it supposed to be this way? Or is it supposed to be like, a positive, you greet the king in the field time?
I'm going to give you such a biased answer that it's almost not fair. So I don't know if you have somebody who might be able to present the other side of this issue, because mine is going to be very one-sided. When I was a young bocher, in fact, I was such a child prodigy that I was in Philly before my bar mitzvah. And Rosh Hashanah, the atmosphere in yeshiva was extraordinarily intense and totally foreign to me. It's completely, and I just have no words to describe. I mamish felt like I was practicing a different religion. to the degree, and I was very impressed, and I'm even more impressed now, that Reb Shmuel came over to me, Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky Zalgazinza, came over to me after Rosh Hashanah and told me that I should leave for Yom Kippur and I should never be in yeshiva again for Yom Neiroim. He recognized that it was just, there was a completely different dynamic going on. So let me tell you what these two things are. And I think we need to find our place somewhere in the middle. There's no question that, as we see in the Nisan Toikev, it's the day of judgment. Mi yichya, mi yamos, mi yayosha, mi yayoni. But to me, and I believe bichlal, the Hasidic culture, the intense focus of Rosh Hashanah was the Yom HaMlocha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was all about coronating HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Melech. Yes, it's Yom HaDin. But the Yom HaDin, the aspect of judgment, was completely and totally focused upon what is going to be my portion, if any, in this coronation throughout the year. So let's clarify what that means practically. As we know, Rosh Hashanah was the day of the creation of Adam Rishon, and the Rabbi Benzion created his world in order that he be coronated as Melech for the purpose of his avodah, meaning that humanity should benefit from the Rabbeinu Shalom's mastery and kingdom over us. To the degree that we are coronators of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do we have the right? Matisyahu Solomon has a magnificent piece that he writes about a contractor who is building a palace for the king. And he wins the contract to build this palace. And each day he comes to the king and requests of the king the supplies that he's going to need in order to be able to continue building. Anybody who looks at this from the outside would say, like, what is with this person? He's constantly there schnorring stuff from the king. But as somebody who understands what's happening, realizes he's not asking anything of himself. He has a job to do. He's building a palace for the king. We are giving in our bid on Rosh Hashanah. We're saying, Rabbi Shalom, I want to be on the team. I want to be I want to live so that I can be the one who coronates you as king, so that I can build your palace, so that I can fulfill your will. As Rashi says, I want to be the one who can provide HaKadosh Baruch Hu with that nachas ruach. I want to be on the team. And in order to be on that team, here's what I need. I need to be healthy, and I need long life, and I need nachas, and I need to have all the components that are required to be. I mean, imagine if somebody comes to work to build the palace of the king, and he hasn't been able to sleep, and he hasn't been able to think, and he doesn't have what to eat. What kind of Eved is he going to be? How well will he be able to perform his duties? So you can look at it in the terror of, I might be rejected. And for some reason, people find that attractive. I can't imagine why. Or you can look at it as this incredible opportunity for us to be able to join this force that Hashem created in his world for human beings to be able to be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. With the way the Baal Tanya puts it in, he puts it in such staggering terms. He says, imagine if there was a brilliant, brilliant person. And this brilliant person wants to become king, but not king over humans, but king over ants. How ridiculous is that? Now we need to multiply this 1 billion times over when we're dealing with Hashem Yisbarach and Klal Yisrael as us as humans. But the fact is that that's what Hashem said he wants. And if that's what he wants, we are privileged to be able to make that request of him. And that word has to be first and foremost in our minds, that we have to feel privileged that Hashem gives us the opportunity to be mamlechem, and then to do the things that he has decreed are the ways we are mamlechem. That's where we get into such, I have a soapbox that my chevra all know that I talk about, which is this disease called spirituality. Because we have a world now that is into all of these touchy-feely spiritual things and all this good feeling stuff, and none of it has any requirements. It's all about me. It's all about my good feeling and how I'm going to feel about this. And it's a bunch of nonsense. We're not the ones who create the mitzvahs. The Rebbeinu Shalom tells us, here is how you're mamlech me. I want you to take a citrus fruit and a palm branch and 3 myrtles and 2, what do you call it, rovas? Willows, and put them together and shake them in 6 directions. Why? It doesn't make any difference. Why? Are there infinite reasons for this mitzvah? Of course there are, because the Rebbeinu Shalom is infinite and his wisdom is infinite. But at the bottom line of it, at the source, the yesod is because this is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses for us to be mamlechem. It's not subject to our feelings or which things make us feel good or which things don't make us feel good. That's a bunch of nonsense. Should we feel good, we should have the most extreme simcha in the world about the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us and chooses us with life and allows us the opportunity to be mamlechem in those ways. But to go and to choose this mitzvah works for me, this mitzvah doesn't work for me, this is meaningful to me, it makes me feel whatever it is, go take some aspirin and call me in the morning. It's irrelevant how it makes us feel. It's completely it's such a non-issue to the degree where the Baltanya writes in a place that if we imagine that we're feeling something, we're delusional. It's not a subject to our feelings. The feeling we could and must feel is this incredible sense of Ashreinu Matov Chalkeinu, that we're on the team. Hashem chose us to be those who are mamlechem. So, is that part of the liturgy of Yontif davening, miyichya miyamis? It certainly is. But I think we need to be far more focused on the miyichya, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem will give us life, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to use it for the purpose that he's giving it to us? And the very fact that we wake up every morning is a statement on behalf of Hashem saying, I trust that you're going to do it today. I'm giving you life because I trust that today you are going to be mamlech me as I desire. There's no greater vote of confidence in the simcha that should register more so than the fact that my neshama was restored to me this morning and hopefully will be again tomorrow. And in a big way on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is when we apply for the contract. That's when we're asking to be given the opportunity to be on the team. So I know that there are people, to such a degree where somebody repeated to me from one of the Gedolim that they don't understand how a person can sing a niggun on Rosh Hashanah davening. And I want to ask, I don't understand how it is that we don't sing through all of Yontiv davening. It's the most exciting. I shared with my chevra here that the Ramesh the Kozhnitzer writes that he never saw the Kozhnitzer Maggid, his father, so besimcha as he did when he saw him in Rosh Hashanah. It's the incredible privilege that we have that Hashem is choosing us. He's giving us another year to be mamlechem.
Here's a question from a woman. I find this time of the year extremely stressful. As a woman, exhausting. Halachically, what is a woman's true role during these weeks of Yom Neroim and Yom Tovim?
This really should be asked of a woman, because no matter how a man answers it, it's never going to be right. Let's just be honest with them, because it's easy for you to say. Somebody repeated to me yesterday that Rabbi Solomon said that there was a king who opened up the palace and said, anybody who has any request should line up to see me. So the people of his Melucha came and lined up in droves. And then the king spots on the line his children's babysitter. He says to her, what are you doing here? She said, what do you mean? The king offered to, opened up and said that anybody who has any request, why would I miss an opportunity like that? He said, you should be with my children. You, as the keeper of my children, you could ask me for what you need anytime. It's an incredibly powerful message from Rabbi Solomon. I mean, it takes guts to say something like that. And he certainly has the places to say it. Is there a chiyuv of unique tefillah on Rosh Hashanah? No question. It's one of the Tkiyah Shofar is one of the mitzvahs that women of Klal Yisrael have accepted upon themselves, and every woman should make it her business, if at all possible, to hear Tkiyah Shofar. But there's no question that the roles of, going back to what I said earlier, we didn't choose this structure. Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one who gave us the structure of which mitzvahs we are mechuyev to do, which mitzvahs women are mechuyev to do. And then on top of that, there are mitzvahs that are optional that women can do, and they have a kiyum mitzvah if they do it. But you think about it, the very fact that a woman is able to make a bracha on Tkiyah Shofar, Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvaysa v'tzivanu. Did he really command women to do this mitzvah? Nonetheless, because women undertook this mitzvah, they have the right to say that bracha. So too with sukkah and lulav and so on. And to a certain degree, if you really think about that, the fact that a woman volunteers to take on that mitzvah is unique unto itself. It's something where she's not necessarily mitzvah to do, she's not commanded, and nonetheless she has the opportunity to say that bracha and take it upon herself. But primarily, there's no question that women need to be able to recognize that we're not the ones who are the mitzvah. And as much as they want to say those rabbis are the ones who created the structure, that we did not. They did not. The Rebbeinu Shalom is the one who created the structure. And therefore, in their own place, they need to celebrate that which the Rebbeinu Shalom gave them and tasked them in their part of the Melucha. And that's raising the princes and princesses of Klal Yisrael. And Menachem Shleim is a Zechar of the Bracha from Denver. I was once listening to one of his tapes. So he was pointing out the absurdity of how our culture sets the tone. So at least at that stage, this was before COVID, and people had big snazzy offices, right? So the world appreciates and worships the Wall Street office chair. So he said, but look at it in the eyes of Klal Yisrael, when Klal Yisrael is true to Klal Yisrael. What was the Beis Hamikdash? The Kohanim fought literally to death at some times to be able to perform the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. He says, what was the Beis Hamikdash? It was one big kitchen. What did they do there? And then they salted, and they took the meat up, and they fried food, and they lit the ovens on the mizbech. What was the difference? The difference was that due to the fact that it was the Beis Hamikdash, so Klal Yisrael envied the position of the kohen who was able to do the avodah. But ultimately, it was one big kitchen. So what's the tragedy that has befallen Klal Yisrael? The tragedy is that society no longer values the kitchen. So we've created this value of the man in front of the shul or whatever it is. You could fill in the blank for what Baruch Hashem, it changes every year. So the it's no longer the person in the Wall Street seat or whatever it is, but who cares what they value? We need to get back to the essence of what we discussed earlier, which is that the Hashem sets the tone. He decides what it is that he wants of us. And it would be no different than my being envious of the Kohen who's able to go up and give the bracha of Birchas Kahanim, or the Kohen being envious of the fact that I was able to perform the mitzvah of Pidnei Ben and he can't. Everybody has their roles, and we need to celebrate and feel privileged for the role that Hashem gave us. So there's no question that the Noshim Tzidkanius of Klal Yisrael during this season wipe themselves out with the preparation of the Sudas and try juggling the schedule, and forget the schedule gets even tougher because the men are in shul so long, and it takes that much more effort for them to be able to do what it is that they're doing, and it's incumbent upon us men folk to make sure that the women feel that we value their incredible avodah. That's our business, and we have to get much better at doing that. But it has to start with the women themselves feeling that sense of privilege for the gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them in how he wants them to serve him. It has to start there.
Beautiful, Rabbi Twerski. Very nice. Okay, we have so many more questions. Okay, you're on.
Okay, hi, Rabbi. Thanks for taking my call, I guess. So as an adult, it's easier for me personally to recognize that these challenges that Hashem give us are to make us, who we are and to take us on our journeys. But as a mother of, teenagers and as a principal of middle schoolers, with all of these challenges that they face and the, infiltration of technology and their lives just being so chaotic and not understanding, what it is, what sort of message can we give them, like our children, to recognize that, this ain't no movado, and that this is not burdensome. This is not, the caller before said this scary time. How can we show them the beauty in this on their level? So it's not like, oh, I got to go daven, I got to go listen to shofar. Like, how do we show them that?
Okay. So I was in Memphis last week, and I had the opportunity to talk to their wonderful high school there. And this issue came up. And I was reminded at the time, I think I may have shared this with you last time we were on, Oshi. Remind me if I did, but too bad. I was in Dallas, Texas a few years ago. And the rabbi asked me to meet with a fellow there who was down and out, had gone through a terrible divorce, and the kids were taken away from him, and he wasn't making parnos. It was like everything was, this guy never had the Midas touch. Everything he touched turned into a muffler. So I met with him, and he unloaded his tzaras, and then he concluded by saying, he shared with me that he was a Navy SEAL in his past existence. And he concluded the whole thing with, why does God hate me? So I engaged him in conversation about his training as a Navy SEAL, what it took to become a Navy SEAL. You can't imagine what these guys go through. It is mashu. They have to go through desert training in incredible heat. They have to be able to travel and get across rivers with alligators and snakes and all kinds of other Beifanim and Chayas HaKodesh. They have to be able to traverse mountains and just like, you can't imagine what these people have to go through in order to become a certified Navy SEAL. So I said to the fellow after he finished telling me about this, I said, so how many times did you say to your commander and your trainer, why do you hate me? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, why would somebody who loves you put you through the kind of torture to go through those kinds of incredible, difficult situations? He must hate you. So he said, no, that's part of the training. The only way we can really be able to know that we can make it through those kinds of circumstances is to go through that training and to be able to overcome, those situations. I was just passed a note. I need a Pirush Rashi on this note, Rabbi Benzion. You can explain it to me maybe. Anyway, so I said to him, did it ever occur to you that these challenges and these trials are coming from an incredibly loving parent who, it goes back to the mashal that the Machne Ephraim brings this, and the other Sifri Kodesh, the quote is the name of this Baal Shem Kodesh on the pasuk of Hu Yinagenu. What's the conclusion of one of the kapitlach that we say in the Yom? So he says it's a mashal of a parent who's trying to teach a child how to walk. So what do? Every one of us, you pick the kid up and the kid takes a step. And what does a cruel parent do? We step back. Now put yourself in the mind of the kid. What are you doing? I took a step and you're moving further away from me. But that's how you teach a child how to walk. To the child, it looks like abandonment. But in essence, it's the last thing that a parent is trying to do. We're trying to teach the child how to walk. So I believe that what we need to start sharing with the youth is that there's a concept called an obstacle course. We used to have one in Hill Academy we used to go out and play in the yard. There was a great obstacle course. Somebody would say, a thinking person would say, what do you have to go walk through this whole course? Why don't you just walk on level ground? Well, there's no fun. There's no challenge in doing that. The challenge is in being able to make it across the obstacle course. We need to convey to the youth, and perhaps we should start with ourselves, that rather than feeling put upon and persecuted, that we have a loving parent who is trying to get us to a place. The Magid Meshorim brings that the entire purpose of the nisyonis that we have in life is that it's not going to be Nahamid Chsufin. That Hashem doesn't want us to have bread to bask in His light undeserved. So it all goes back to the same yesod, that there's an obstacle course that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is handing us in life. And by definition, an obstacle course is going to be challenging. But that's where the action is. It's the baby taking the steps. Obviously, at the end of it all, there's a parent waiting with open arms to give us a hug. And both of those things are critical. Understanding that the course is there for our benefit, and understanding that at the end of it is a loving parent waiting to embrace us.
Beautiful, Rabbi Twerski. Let's try to cover in a few more if that's okay. Let's hit into this question a little bit. Covered it a little bit, but I want to get a little deeper into it. With all that's going on in my life, I don't like to think about it at all. I just do what I'm meant to do and what everybody else does. I go to shul, I dip the apple in the honey. I do feel a little guilty. What should I do? I basically have no emotional connection. I'm more, robotic. I don't want to feel.
It's about Tanya. Okay, so I actually used this past when are we with it? This past Shabbos. There's a mimer from the Balatanya in the Maimarim Akitzorim. I encourage everybody to look it up and see it themselves because it's actually two very similar ones. This one's in Pashas Kiseitze. He writes that it's very clear that it's in response to somebody, but let me give you the context that he says it. He says that Kisiyena le'ishtei nashim ha'achas ahuva v'achas snua. Person has two wives. One of them is loved and one of them is hated. And ben abchor lasnia, and the oldest son is born to the hated wife. Is ben ha'uva al pnei ben hasnua. He's not allowed to choose the child, the oldest child of the beloved wife over the hated wife. Says the Balatanya that there are two types of Yidden in the world. There are Yidden who have a loving relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there are Yidden who have a difficult relationship. And he says, I'll prove to you that the Geula is not going to come because of the people who are on fire and have this great loving relationship with Hashem. Because at the time of the Churban, there were plenty of Jews like that. Tanoim and Amiroim, Tanoim at that time. And yet the Churban happened. He says the Mashiach is going to come because of those of us who don't have any feeling, who don't have any desire to serve. That's where Mashiach is going to come. Shaila is, what's going on? How do we do this? So he writes explicitly. He says that Hashem desires to have a dira b'tachtonim. Hashem desires to have a dwelling place among the low. Listen to this low. When you're HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's multicolored, it's kavod. What kind of low? High and low. Says the Balatanya that the low refers to the people who have no desire to serve. Those of us who are numb, we're struggling, we're battling it out day after day with our taivas, with technology, as you just mentioned, with all the other distractions. We're in the trenches, we're fighting, and we're burnt out. And despite that, we continue to do what we need to do. And this is really the critical point. We need to rejoice that we can serve, not despite the fact that we're feeling that way, but because of the way, because we feel that way. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. Says the Balatanya, that we need to be able to rejoice that we are providing HaKadosh Baruch Hu with that dira in the lowest of places, meaning I don't want to do this. Getting up every morning is a struggle for me. Putting on my tefillin is a struggle for me. Kashrus could be a struggle for me. What you fill in the blanks. We're not feeling the highs. We're not feeling the passion. We're not feeling the love. And despite that, we're still doing it. We need to rejoice with the fact that we can provide HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a dwelling place, despite the fact that we feel that way. And that's where the celebration is. And he writes explicitly, and because of us, those who are struggling, Yovai Agula, that's where Mashiach is going to come. Not because of the people who are on fire and have this great loving relationship. It's because of those of us who struggle and are not in the mood of serving. We're the ones who are providing that opportunity. But the message has to go back to what I said earlier, which is that Ashreinu Matayv Chalkeinu, that I could get up in the morning, I'm not in the mood, and I'm celebrating the fact I'm engulfed in simcha because of the fact that because I'm not in the mood and I still do it, that I'm bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu even into those low places where his presence is not yet felt. To me, that was such an empowering idea because I don't have to feel it. And despite that, I can celebrate and be besimcha over the fact that I'm serving despite the fact that I'm not in the mood and I don't feel anything.
If you're rejoicing, then you're not in the low.
So I don't think it's a stira. I really don't think it's meaning intellectually, what you're saying is true, right? Because it doesn't have to see, this is the critical thing. We're all out there caught up with this spiritual nonsense. And those of us who are not feeling the spirituality of it, and are feeling tired and worn out feel deficient. And what the Baltani is telling us is no, quite the contrary. Because we're not feeling, that's why we should feel the simcha of this is where the action is. I think I shared with you the story that in the Bavrov's first trip to Eretz Yisrael, so he was a survivor. He was a relatively young man, although he was in his 50s at the time. He was starting all over again. Went to Eretz Yisrael. The Brisker Rav was still alive. The Brisker Rav was a misnagid from back from Europe, and in comes this young Chassidish Rebbe, and people were expecting it to be not this warm and fuzzy meeting. And the Bavrov shared with him that the Brisker Rav mentioned something about Ikvus de Mashiach, that our generation is called the heel of Mashiach. It's the lowest period. So the Bavrov said to him that the Mendel of Rimanov said true. Our generation is called Ikvus de Mashiach. It's the lowest. We're the heel. The heel has no feeling. But we dare not forget that the entire structure of the human being, the heart, the mind, all the critical evarim, all stand on the heel. If the heel falls, the entire structure falls. So where it's an insult that we're the generation called Ikvus de Mashiach, it's also the greatest compliment. It's upon us that all those generations, starting with the Avos HaKadoshim, all through Jewish history, all of them are standing on us. And because we have no feeling, because we're the ones who struggle, and despite that, we get up every morning and do what we need to do, we should understand that all of those generations before us celebrate every one of those victories.
Oh, powerful, Rabbi Twerski. Okay, we have 2 more live ones. Let's try to count them around. You're on. Hi. Let's see if the mic works. Can you talk? Hi, sorry, we're putting you
it's
on.
me. Oh, it's me. Oh, okay.
Switch it to you. The other person's mic wasn't working.
And this ties in with being actually feeling deficient, but usually I go into Yom Tov, feeling a combination, motivated, pensive, but their idea of wanting to take on certain things, but there's like the feeling, how realistic am I in terms of my abilities, capabilities, I don't know, I think that all of us would love to do, take on more mitzvahs, give more tzedakah, but I'm not so sure how feasible it is. With other things going on. I mean, is that just something, just a head trip I'm playing with myself, or is there a way to like maybe sit down, realistically plan goals, something that I mean, not that I want to be business-like on Rosh Hashanah, but is there a way to at least overcome that feeling of sort of inadequacy, that I'm not doing enough, or I can't do enough, or what I think is enough to really, make myself do better, I guess, to follow the coming year.
Okay, so I think that Rabbi Menachem in his opening statement really spoke to that a little bit. And when he spoke about taking small steps, I think there's one other nikuda that would be very, very helpful. None of us ever succeed at taking an additional step unless we have the ability to celebrate the steps that we've taken already. You could only build a skyscraper on a solid foundation. When we're able to look back and take notice of a success, and then take that success and broaden it, we stand the chance of succeeding. If we can't allow ourselves to recognize some area where we have already marked a noted success, it's just not going to work. Because if we see ourselves as failures, one thing we'll guarantee is that we'll continue to fail. So I think that the best way to approach it is look at something that has already been a success and then take another small step in that direction.
I think there's a question that came in, and a lot of people have it. The question is, what should I think? B'shas Tkiyah Shofar? What are the thoughts that I should have about Tkiyah Shofar?
The Gemara already asked the kasha. The Gemara says, "Why do we blow shofar?" To which the Gemara answers, "Rachmana Amar Tiku," because Hashem told us to blow. So I think first and foremost, the kavana needs to be that we're being mekayim the mitzvah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That really has to be in the forefront of our mind as we listen to the shofar. The next step is also brought by Chazal. When the Gemara talks about Malchis, Zechronos, and Shofars, so the Gemara says, what's the key? That each one of the sections that we do in the Shemona Esrei is really sealed through the Tkiyah, the Shofar. So if you look at the sections, if you look at the Psukim and the tefillas that are associated with those Psukim, the Shofar is kind of the catalyst. It's really that which takes that tefillah and raises it to where it needs to get, to the point where it's such a fact. I'm always struck by this one in Shemona Esrei. We're the ones who are commanded to hear the shofar, yet we turn it on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the bracha of shofars, we say Ki ata, that you're the one who is mazin kol shofar. You're the one who listens to the shofar. So there's an impression that needs to be made upon us, but to the degree that we're listening to the shofar, we turn it back on Hashem, and we're misfollowed to Kabbah shofar go to l'cheir seinam. Every year when we go to the Tkiyah Gedolah, there's a tefillah in there that the Rebbeinu Shalom should already blow that Tkiyah. You know, there's a great story that I heard from my father Zozang about the Minchas Aloz, the Minkat Cherub. So as you all know, we blow shofar throughout the month of Elul, and one of his children came to him Erev Rosh Hashanah. Erev Rosh Hashanah you don't blow, and asked him to please blow shofar. And he said to him, "My kid, we don't blow shofar Erev Rosh Hashanah." And the kid was insistent and pleaded and begged for his father to blow it. Tata blues. And finally, the Minchas Aloz couldn't constrain him. He couldn't hold back anymore. And he blew shofar for the kid. Then he turned his eyes heavenward and says, "Rebbeinu Shalom, my child has just asked me here for a few minutes to blow, and I couldn't restrain. We've been asking you, Rebbeinu Shalom, to blow the shofar. Tata blues. We've been asking for so many years you to blow shofar. Please blow the shofar already." So there's clearly an emphasis on the Tkiyah b'shofar Godel when we're listening to the shofar, to turn it to Rebbeinu Shalom and ask him to blow.
Okay. So the last live question, I have one more for you, Rabbi Twerski, and then we'll go to closing. You're on.
Okay, I wanted to know in regard to children, what can we expect of them in shul? Feel-wise, I'm talking like little ones, like 8, 9, 10-year-olds. And how do we get them to feel that connection that they want to daven? It's not an O.
No, I think that first of all, there's not going to be ever a one size fits all. We had a very chashuv Talmid Chacham who was a Malamed in our school. His name was Rabbi Yaakov Anton, and of course, I don't remember this. I thought that I was an angel in shul, but evidently that was not the case when I was a kid. And despite the fact that I was the rabbi's son, I did my fair portion of horsing around. And I have a very vivid recollection of him physically lifting me up and putting me outside of the building on the sidewalk and telling me, when you learn how to behave in shul, then you can come back in. And I was not entertained, especially after I was the rabbi's son and he had no business doing that, but my father was busy with other things, so he took care of it. So the reason I'm telling you this is that my father is an intense davener, and it took years for me to get to a point where that was something that I could relate to. So I think that there's a different maturity level for every child. And there's a real delicate balance between pushing a kid and making it oppressive for a kid. And we need to be really careful. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't state our expectations. I think that it's important to say to a child, I would like you to be in shul. You can be in shul as long as you're behaving and you're doing what you need to do. The minute it turns into a place where the kids are getting into trouble or they're acting like Chayes HaKodesh, at that point, a child needs to have the understanding that they don't belong there. So everybody needs to know the tolerance level of any given child. And to the degree that that kid could be there, we have one balabos in particular in shul who brings his kid for a limited time, then expands it, 5 minutes by 5 minutes, and the kid sits like an angel. And when it gets too much, I mean, the child brings, interestingly, the parents provide him with books to read, obviously appropriate things so that he can stay in shul longer. But at some point, it depends on the zitzfleisch of a kid. You got to know, if we don't have zitzfleisch, what do we want from our kids? So modeling is going to be critical. And beyond that, you got to know the nature of a child. And we need to push to a level where we know, we're creating the obstacle course for them and push them a little bit into new territory, but not to the point where it becomes something that they're going to resent for the rest of their lives and have a negative association with attending shul.
Rabbi Twerski, the last question of the night, and then we're going to go to the closing. This year, we had so many not normal tragedies from COVID. Story in Stalin, Surfside, the Shir, the Zech Nishmas, the boy who was happened in Denver. What is the message we need to take out of this as we approach Rosh Hashanah tomorrow night? How are we to see Hashem as our loving Father?
I may have shared this with you last time also, but I loved it when I heard it, and I've shared it many times since. Dr. Jerry Loeb from Chicago, Hashem should grant him a refuah shalema, once spoke here in our shul in Milwaukee. And he shared with us that somebody challenged, he's a child of survivors, of Holocaust survivors. And his father was once asked, how can you continue to be frum after seeing what you saw and experiencing what you experienced? So his father said to him, there is a practice that used to be more common among Klal Yisrael and humanity, that we took our kids in for vaccines. Now it's a very hot topic. But when we were kids, now they make them in really neat, nifty little things that they put in your arm. But when we were kids, if you remember, there was a bottle of the vaccine and there was a long needle, and the doctor would go over and he would pull whatever amount he needed of this thing, and then he'd plunge it into various body parts. And depending on which vaccine it was. So he says, put yourself into the mind of a toddler. Mother's holding the kid. And the doctor walks over with this needle. So the toddler's for sure thinking to himself, you stupid doctor, you know that my mother's going to knock your lights out before you ever get near me with that needle. I mean, my mother's my protector. There's no way she's going to allow you to put that needle anywhere near me. And we all know that the exact opposite is true. Not only does the mother allow the doctor to do it, but the mother constrains the child, holds the kid's arms and legs to the point where the doctor can comfortably stick this thing into the kid and get out whatever the contents are in the syringe. And we see very often that the child will react and hit the mother afterwards because the child feels a terrible betrayal that the protector is turned on the child. So Jerry's father said to him, I don't understand. Why doesn't the mother just explain to the kid that there's a disease in Africa, and that if that disease were to, he would ever be exposed to that disease, that it could be very harmful and could create paralysis or even death? Why doesn't the mother just explain it to the kid? And the answer is obvious, because the kid doesn't have the intellectual capacity to comprehend this concept, right? It's beyond it. Now he says, let's look at this. The mother, as bright as the mother might be, is a limited person, a Baal Gvul. And the kid is clearly a Baal Gvul, the very limited comprehension. And yet, despite that, two Baal Gvul can't explain it to each other because the distance between the mother's comprehension and the child's comprehension is too wide and they can't meet. Yet, we being the Chachamim that we are, we have an expectation that somehow we're going to be able to comprehend Darkei Hashem. So it's a mockery. The infinite HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who has infinite wisdom, does things, and we have the arrogance to somehow be able to even utter the words, I don't understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing. Obviously, you don't understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing because he's infinite, we're finite. We could have the highest IQ in the world, and we're not going to be able to grasp the actions of the infinite Chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sometimes Hashem does things just for the purpose of conveying that message to us. I'm in control. I'm running the world. I'm trying to get your attention. And I'm going to do things that you can't understand. And we have to have the humility to be able to say, like Chazal tell us, if a person sees Yisurim Bayim Alav, that this person is Yefash Shvish B'Maisav. We're supposed to inspect our deeds and do tshuva. And if we don't do that, the Rambam says that we're achzorim. He says that we're cruel people. If we don't take every one of these events and use them to analyze our actions and to do tshuva, then we're considered, it's an act of cruelty. But to try comprehending them, or to the chachamim out there who tell us why these things have happened, Rahman al-Itzlan, there's nothing more ridiculous than that. You have to be a Navi to be able to say that these things happen because. That doesn't release us from our obligation of trying to analyze our lives and realize that Hashem is trying to get our attention. Those are two very different statements, two very different approaches.
Twerski, mind-blowing, beautiful. Okay, let's go to closing. First, I guess to Rabbi Twerski for coming on tonight, Erev Rosh Hashanah, and giving so much chizik and being chazik. So many people were here tonight. It was a huge crowd. I'm shocked. Erev Rosh Hashanah, so many people came on. Obviously, everybody needs chizik. Everybody wants to go into Rosh Hashanah with the richtige hargasha and machshava. And shkoyach to Rabbi Twerski for coming. Again, everybody's here the first time every Sunday night. This MID, we have unbelievable shiurim. Please join, tell people about it. And Menachem next Sunday, September 12th, Erev Yom Kippur, Sunday before Yom Kippur, gonna have an amazing shiur. It's so amazing, I can't even tell you about it because I don't know what it is. But we're gonna lock it up, and it's gonna be amazing. Baruch Hashem, we have tremendous siyata d'shmaya. And again, tonight's shiur we're learning Leil Nishmas. The family was on before they sent us thank you for doing the shiur. For Shmuel ben Mordechai Menachem Silverberg, the Bachar who was nifter, was killed in Denver. The source of all the tremendous amount of people that were here tonight, and not sure the thousands of people that will hear this year and be mechazik. It should be an neshama for him, especially during the first Shlishim days of his patira, and it should be a great schus. And for everybody that didn't watch the whole thing, it's all recorded. It's going to be Menachem up tomorrow morning early. Menachem far slichus on menachemberenfeld.com. And if anybody has any questions, please reach out to coachmenachem@gmail.com. We'll forward all the emails to Rabbi Twerski. Tonight's shiur number 72. And if anybody wants to hear it on the phone, we'll be up on the phone line tomorrow morning at 848-777-GROW. I want to give a special thank you to all our advertising sponsors, Lakewood Scoop, Rabbi Yaniv Chazak, and a special thank you to Chayla Kaufman and Shul Summer for JCN. Rabbi Menachem, Coach Menachem, closing words, and then Rabbi Twerski, we'll move it on to you.
Shkoyach, Rabbi Twerski. I just want to mention the idea that you said about the child, that there's no, you have to know each child is different to see how it works. The truth is, I believe we all have inside of us that inner child, every one of us is in a different level, in a different place, and it takes, you have to be able to sit down with yourself and see, where am I? What works? What doesn't work? What can I do? And sometimes you find yourself in a level that you might say you might not be happy about, because you want to be the tzaddik already, like I mentioned. You want to be already many steps ahead. But if you're not there, it's not going to work. So yes, if you're where you are, you need a little bit of self-acceptance, and this is what you need to work on. This is what the Kabbalahs are, or whatever it is. And from there, that's what Hashem wants from you. And that's ultimately what we want, like we heard in the beginning, to understand we're here to connect to Hashem and do His will. So everybody should, Hashem, and wherever they are, they should have the das. Hashem should be das, what they need to do, and they should feel that they're growing, because that's the only way. Like the only way to grow is to feel that you're growing, because if not, it's hard to continue. So thank you very much for everyone being here, and Mitzvah we should have a Geshmaka Zisa New Year, Mitzvah.
Rabbi Twerski, three things. Rabbi Twerski, three things, okay? Number one, what do you think of such a chashuv island? There was like 1,400 people here tonight, Erev, the night before Rosh Hashanah, to come listen. What do you think of that? A. B, we want a divrei bracha from the rabbi for everybody here. And number three, obviously a closing a chizuk before Rosh Hashanah. Probably like 20 hours left.
Okay, so first one is, it is absolutely incredible that people took the time out tonight to come and look for something. Baruch Hashem, Hashem is mazmin to me oftentimes that I come upon great things that I can share. It's a siyata d'shmaya that I'm blessed with. So I'm excited to be able to share those ideas with the tzibur. You see in Shulchan Aruch that there's no hesitation for anybody to give a bracha during the season. Every bracha is critical, is a halacha that you're supposed to be mavarech. So everybody should be blessed with a ksiva v'chsima tova, and as Klal Yisrael says, a git geben shtior, and that I think that one of the most important things throughout the season is for us to be cognizant of the brachas that Hashem gives us. Perhaps the greatest bracha of all is that our eyes should be open to the brachas that we get. So often we're blind, and we're so focused on what we lack, and we don't pay enough attention, and give enough time to count our blessings. So not only should it be a year of bracha and atzlacha, but it should be a year that our eyes should be opened to be able to receive the bracha and to be aware on an ongoing basis of the brachas that Hashem gives us.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Twerski. Everybody have a good kibbutz shiur. AB, we love you, and we'll see you next week, Sunday, same time, same place. Zay gezut.